I would like to call to order the regular meeting of the West Basin Engineering and Operations Committee and a special meeting of the Board of Directors. So, Mr. General Manager, we have a determination of a form.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Director Harold Williams. Here. Chairman Desi Alvarez.
Here,
Director Don Deere.
Here.
Director Scott Houston. Director Gloria Gray.
he will be joining us shortly.
Mr. Chairman, we have a quorum.
So, do we have any public comment?
Mr. Chairman, we have not received any requests for public comment, though this meeting has been held in person virtually. If there's any member of the public that would like to speak, please indicate so now by raising your virtual hand. And Mr. Chairman, I do not see any request.
So we will move on to the action calendar. The first item is amending agreement for Brian of the Juanita Melinda McDonald Carson Regional Water Recycling Plant. Mr. General Manager, would you like to introduce that item?
Yes, happy to do so. This item begins on packet page 3. And for the presentation, we have Uzi Daniel, our Manager of Operations.
Jay, good afternoon, directors. Yes, I'd like to present today the amended agreement proposal here. From the summary, you can see that in 1999, so when we built the facility, I guess I should repeat that, the Juanita Melinda McDonald Carson Regional Water Recycling Plant, or JMM as we like to call it,
Yeah.
before we tie our tongues. When we built that facility, we signed an agreement with the LA County sanitation districts. And that was so that we could discharge our brine into their tunnel and go out to the ocean. So just for reference, it does not go to the headworks for treatment. It goes out in the brine. We have to have our own NPDES permit, which the compliance department manages, in order to send that out, which is due every 5 years. Back in 1999, there was an agreement, which you should see in attachment A, I believe. That was signed that allowed for 30 years. That is now up for renewal. And in good faith, we have been working with the staff at the sanitation districts to get a new agreement in place. The proposed First Amendment, which is in attachment B, in which I actually have hot off the press, was approved by their board yesterday. So we have the signed copy here. That agreement would extend ours for up to 10 years. So up until November 10th of 2034. It establishes an annual fee for us to pay for that of $35,000 per year to utilize their tunnel, all the maintenance, capital improvement. And that will be due July 1st, so in the next fiscal year. There's also a 3% escalator on that. Of note in this agreement is we did make accommodations, which was nice, that if we were to, or once we work together for the pure water purchases, then that would take place of the fees that we are paying here. So right now, this is basically like a lease agreement in order to utilize their line and discharge to the ocean. So with that, I would like to read the recommendation to the group, to the board. And that is, the staff recommends the board authorize the general manager and board to execute the First Amendment to the agreement for the brine disposal with LA County sanitation districts as seen in attachment B, and authorize the payment of $35,000 due July 1st of next year, 2025, that would include a 3% escalator for each year after that to cover the maintenance of the outfall tunnels and towers. Are there any questions I could answer?
Thank you very much.
Sure.
Any questions?
Sounds like a good deal to me. I don't know.
Okay.
Is there?
Director Gray, thank you for joining us.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
No questions? Director Gray, we just had a presentation. I don't know if you have any questions. This is regarding the brine line from the JMM plant to the county sanitation district's facility.
No, I
It's
did
pretty-
read, they actually did. I did read the item, but thank you. No question.
I do have two questions.
Absolutely.
You kept saying the tunnel, I thought we had an 18-inch brine line.
We have a brine line, but then it also goes into their tunnels, which go out to the outfall, so they use them,
But
so it's purple.
from the JMM plant to the Carson plant, it's an 18-inch line.
It is, and that's
Then you
our
connect-
brine line that we maintain.
And then we connect to their tunnel.
Exactly, at a tower, because they have a couple outfalls, and that tower and those tunnels are what go to the ocean.
So for the connection to the tunnel, we pay $35,000 a year.
To utilize those tunnels, yes.
And then you also mentioned that for the future pure water project, that we would have that connection. Can you expand on that? That was something I'm not familiar with. Don't know what you meant.
Sure, in the agreement, so what they propose in the agreement, basically leaving some open language that we are paying this fee, a lease fee to use those tunnels. However, if we, or once we're in partnership purchasing pure water, then that fee could possibly be waived or adjusted according to the amount of water we were to purchase. I think it's an incentive.
But it's something we can exercise. We're not bound by it. I didn't read the attachment, so.
It does leave it fairly, I mean, I get an attorney's opinion, but it does leave it fairly open. Our attorneys were comfortable with it. In fact, it was somewhat flexible language in order to say they might, give us some relief on this if we were indeed purchasing water.
Okay, all right, that's my only question. So unless there's any objection,
Yeah, I agree.
Thank you.
and the next item is the awarding of an agreement for aquatic toxicity testing. General manager, could you please introduce that item?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, this item begins on packet page 26. However, I did want to note that yesterday I was able to email you out an amended committee report. I believe that staff will be placing this online. It's already actually online, so all members of the public will have access to that. This is an updated memo, and it will be presented by Jamie Malpete, our Water Quality and Environmental Compliance Supervisor.
BJ, good afternoon, directors. As EJ mentioned, the original item is on page 26, but however, please refer to the most updated copies that you have. And it is online in the chat for those attending online. With the renewal of the National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System, brine discharge permits for Edward C. Little and for Juanita Millender McDonald Person Regional Water Recycling Plant, the Regional Water Quality Control by the Regional Water Quality Control Board earlier this year. West Basin Municipal Water District is required to perform aquatic chronic toxicity for both facilities. Annual chronic toxicity testing needs to be conducted for a duration of the permit on the most sensitive species determined for each facility. For ECL, the most sensitive species is giant kelp. For Carson, the most sensitive species is top smelt.
What is it?
Top smelt, Pacific top smelt. So it's a fish.
I understand what a spell is.
I thought she just said smell.
You eat it all the time.
We're not maybe eating this. In addition to the annual testing, a species sensitivity screening must be performed 18 months prior to each permit renewal in 2029. The screenings are 4 sets of chronic toxicity tests to be completed in a span of 1 year, 1 set per quarter. The test will be performed on a vertebrate, an invertebrate, and an algal species. The tests are bioassays with varying degrees of effluent concentrations for survival, growth, and reproduction of the organisms are used to determine long-term or chronic effects of exposure. They require extensive coordination with other agencies and multiple sampling events that last up to 1 week. Results are reported using the Test of Significant Toxicity, or TST, hypothesis testing statistical approach, which provides a pass or fail result for these tests. In the event of a TST failure, West Basin will be required to perform a more detailed toxicity reduction evaluation, with toxicity identification and evaluation, outlined in the initial investigation TRE work plan, which was submitted for the approval with the approval of the program. Protection of water quality is of the utmost importance to West Basin and its community. Toxicity tests demonstrate the brine discharge into the Pacific Ocean from ECL and Carson will not adversely affect the marine life. As this testing is a requirement for West Basin's NPDES failure to perform this testing and report the results will be a violation, and other regulatory requirements that can result in administrative fines or other enforcement actions. A request for proposal was issued on September 3rd. After a competitive bidding process, 2 laboratories submitted proposals. Aquatic Bioassay Consulting Laboratories Incorporated, or other known as ABC, located in Ventura County, and WSP USA Incorporated, located in San Diego, California. A summary of the final evaluation results is provided in Table 1. Staff recommends utilizing the services of WSP after this competitive bidding. While ABC was the least expensive, WSP put together a more detailed and tailored proposal, demonstrating a greater understanding of our permits and testing requirements. This decision was based on the following. 1, technical methodology. Our toxicity testing is different from a publicly owned treatment works or conventional wastewater treatment plants. Since we discharge our brine effluent with the effluent of City of Los Angeles at Hyperion and with LA County Sanitation Districts at the AKA Warren Water Resource Facility outfall. Each permit has an in-stream waste concentration, or an IWC, which is the mixture of the brine effluent from the West Basin facility and the secondary effluent from the sanitary sewer agency's discharge outfall to the Pacific Ocean. The laboratory will be responsible for the manual compositing of these effluents according to the IWC specified percentages. WSP had this procedure outlined in their proposal and confirmed the methodologies during their interview. The second reasoning why we based our decision was reliability. WSP clients had first choice of aquatic specimens since their staff has a scientific collection permit, which is issued by the state of California's Department of Fisheries and Wildlife to collect their specimens locally instead of relying on second-party collectors or aquaculture farms. The quality of the specimen is important to a successful test. If a test does not pass due to the specimen's inability to reproduce or grow independent from the effluent quality, the test is considered invalid. This can cause inaccurate results, resampling, retesting costs, and possible violations if deadlines are missed. I would like to call your attention to the price difference between the 2 proposals. While there is a $20,000 difference, it's significant. The price was negotiated down about $18,000 less than the original cost that the WSP proposed, which was $81,255. Excuse me, $200. Even with the largest price difference, WSP was ranked higher in the evaluations process, which is a testament to the RFP approach of using multiple criteria to determine the best value for West Basin. I will now read the recommendation. That the board authorize the general manager to enter into an agreement with WSP USA Incorporated for aquatic chronic toxicity testing, including species sensitivity screenings for both facilities for a 5-year term beginning January 1st, 2025 through December 31st, 2029, in the amount of $63,300 plus a 10% contingency for a total not to exceed amount of $69,630. I will be happy to answer any questions you may have at this time.
Director Wood.
By chance, was this going to be used with our desalination project?
Would they do toxicity testing also for ocean desal? Yes, they do.
Are we going to use it?
I believe we will.
I don't know if we use the same company, but this type of testing is required, yes.
It's required for most,
Ocean
all that I know of desalination, wastewater treatment plants, anything discharging. sewage.
But there would be a different set of toxicity tests. They identify probably different species.
A different species might be the sea urchin or an abalone, but a similar type test, yes.
Thank you.
Director Deere?
Just want to make sure the new figure is in the record. Is it?
It was read into the motion. It's important to note that we did update this. If you look at just the agenda, it has the old figure, but if you look at the updated board memo, it has the updated total amount included in there.
And Director Gray, do you have any questions?
No, Mr. Chair, no questions. Thank you for asking.
Okay. I understand that these are professional services and that there is a different in the experience and capabilities and so on of different firms, but the difference in the price is significant. So can you go over again why they are that much better?
For a number of reasons. One being the test specimens. They're actually a provider of the test specimens for different laboratories. So we would get first selection if we utilize their services. So we would get the cream of the crop of the top smelt, I guess you could say. So making sure that they have the best organisms to perform these tests on, that's very important. Secondly,
Maybe you can slow down there.
Oh, I'm
and
sorry.
Explain why that is important.
because the results of these tests are determined upon how these organisms survive, reproduce, grow. Depending on the species, depending on the organism, they're going to be looking at if the eggs were fertilized, if the fish grew from 1 centimeter to 1.2 centimeters, if they are able to develop in from a larval species into an adult species during these tests.
So this lab
Yes.
then is going to provide specimens that are stronger and potentially genetically in better shape than the specimens provided by the second lab, and therefore more likely to sustain any environmental shock.
Yes. Yes. They're going to be more fit organisms. They will be, as I mentioned, locally acquired versus going from like an aqua farm in Northern California or something of that nature. They're actually going to be going out into the ocean to get them themselves.
I always find that interesting that when we shop for toxicity that we always, make sure it's a really healthy specimen.
Yes. We want the cream of the crop of top smelts.
The top of the food.
Keep going.
The second reason for this was just the proposal altogether. WSP submitted a very tailored proposal. Quoted our permits, quoted the regulations and the testing that we would need to follow. All around took a lot more time, appeared to have taken a lot of time and energy to put into their proposal. And seemed to have understood how our testing would be in comparison to like another type of wastewater treatment plant. Like I said, there's a lot of blending. We have to have a lot of different percentages, a lot of sample cups. And they were aware of the breakdown of the percentages between our effluent as well as LA County Sands and LA County Sanitation Districts and LA Sands percentages. We have to have different percentages of the effluent in each of the testing mediums.
Okay. And then my last question is, can you speak to, I believe, the range that they're providing for, the toxicity, test of significant toxicity. As they're saying 9,500 to 22,500, it is not part of the price, so when would we exercise that? And when does that range kick in?
If we were to fail one of our tests, for example, if one of our tests were to come back and we'd have mass extinction of kelp within our tests, we'd have to prove that our water is not, our effluent is not toxic. So we'd have to go through different procedures to identify the cause of the toxicity and to verify that the effluent is toxic. So that was, while that was not included, that is a possibility.
So we just have price for that
Yes.
if we choose to exercise that, and, but it's above and
Correct.
beyond that, and it is a range.
Yes,
9,500.
depending on what's required by the regional board, whether they expect us to do the full identification or just do the toxicity reduction evaluation.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
We okay moving this forward?
Yep.
Okay. So let's move on to the next item, which is to initiate solicitation for bulk chemical storage condition assessment.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, this item begins on packet page 41. And for this presentation, we have Camille Castillo, our engineer 2.
Okay, good afternoon, Chairman Alvarez and members of the committee. Today I'm presenting on the action item for the bulk chemical storage assessment project. The project is comprised of inspections of the existing bulk chemical storage tanks located throughout the West Basin facilities and a preparation of a written condition assessment report, which will include the findings and expert rating prioritization for repair or replacement recommendations. The project will allow for proactive prioritization of future chemical tank repair and replacement projects and ensure continued reliable service for customers. The committee may recall this project being presented at the March Engineering and Operations Committee meeting this year. Staff presented the collected asset data for the 67 bulk chemical storage tanks and determined that 47 of these tanks require a condition assessment. Of the 47 tanks, 25 tanks located at our Edward C. Little facility have been prioritized because of one, available redundancy in the treatment system, which will allow a consultant to perform an internal tank inspection with minimal disruption to recycle water production, and 2, for better flexibility in scheduling. Staff has prepared a scope of work for the solicitation of this project as shown in the attachment and recommends the following. That the board authorize the general manager to initiate the proposal solicitation process for the bulk chemical storage condition assessment. This concludes my action item, and I'm available for any questions you may have.
Thank you. Director Williams, any questions?
No, thank you.
No question.
Director Gray, any questions or comments?
No questions. Thank you.
So all we're doing is authorizing the issuance of an RFP. I think I expressed my reservations with the need for this in March, whenever this was first brought to us. Still have those. We need to do this, but we'll move this forward, if that's okay with Director Williams.
Good.
Okay, moving on, we are now at the information calendar. We're gonna talk about climate change, vulnerability assessment and mitigation plan update. That's a mouthful. Okay.
Yes,
Mr. Manager.
Mr. Chairman, this item begins on packet page 59. And for this presentation, we have Alejandra Cano Alvarado for the presentation.
This information item is to provide an update on the climate change vulnerability assessment and mitigation plan. In November 2023, West Basin received the tentative orders by the Los Angeles Regional Water Control Board to incorporate provisions and prepare this plan as requirement for the National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System, the NPDES, brine renewable burning for 2 of our facilities, the Edward C. Little Water Facility at El Segundo, and the $1 million McDonald's plant in Carson. And with the tentative orders, the Regional Control Board provided a deadline to submit this plan. For ECL, the deadline is by the end of January 2025, and for the GMM plan, it's by March 2025. However, after conversations with the regional board, West Basin received approval to do one efficient combined document that satisfies both permits for both facilities. And this document or plan, it's due January 30th of next year. So to address this requirement and prepare this plan, a request for proposal was issued on April 11 as part of the on-call professional engineer consultant process. A virtual non-mandatory pre-proposal meeting was held on April 25, and 2 pre-proposals were submitted by the deadline on May 9. Interviews with the proposers took place on June 12th of this year. And following this process, the consultant Hazen and Sawyer was awarded the contract on July 15 to conduct the vulnerability assessment and developing the mitigation plan for both of the facilities for the amount of $137,242. The vulnerability assessment, which is like the first portion of this project, and in a sort of way, evaluates the short and long-term term vulnerabilities that both facilities may experience as consequence of climate change. That could be from like extreme heat to sea level rise, flooding, etc. The second portion of this plan is the mitigation plan, which provides recommendations that one reduces the vulnerability of the facilities, as well as it's designed to reduce the greenhouse gas emissions or the carbon footprint that is resulted from the operations of ECL and GMM facilities. The preliminary results of the vulnerability assessment were discussed in a workshop that was earlier in October. The purpose of this workshop was to gather questions, comments that the team may have. Currently, the consultant is analyzing the data from the assessment and developing the mitigation plan portion. A second workshop will be conducted next week on October 29 to discuss preliminary mitigation measures. A comprehensive document of the vulnerability assessment findings, as well as the mitigation recommendations for both facilities, is expected to be completed by the end of this year, so December, mid-December. Upon finalizing the climate change plan, the results of the assessment and the mitigation recommendations will be presented to this board. The staff anticipates submitting the climate change plan, which is this project, to the regulator as part of the NPDES permit, brine permit renewal in January 2025. As a result of this plan required by the Water Board, recommendations are anticipated to be implemented in the next 5 years. So with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Well, thank you. Director Williams,
No, thank you.
Director Gray.
No, thank you. Thank you.
Okay. I do have a couple of questions. So, for our facilities, what kind of real changes are we looking or potentially looking at in terms of something being induced by climate change that is affecting all of us? We're pretty high above sea level, so I'm not quite sure that water level rising affects our facilities, but if it does, let me know.
Yeah, according to the preliminary results of the vulnerability assessment, it was identified that yes, our facilities are pretty resilient in that matter. However, the consultant did identify some items that haven't been shown yet to us. It will be next week, but some of the recommendations are related to energy, or energy intensity, to reduce our energy intensity, to reduce ultimately our greenhouse gases emissions. So most of the recommendations will be more targeted towards the greenhouse gases reduction.
And how much control do we have over that? Just a rhetorical question. Okay,
I
thank
mean,
you.
I'll say that we can't answer that. Like, where does our energy come from? Where's our electricity?
Right.
However, yes, there is only so much we can do, but then there's also issues with like greenhouse gases and our biosolids, like where we send our biosolids to. California versus Arizona, where are they? If we go closer, we reduce our carbon footprint than if we go farther. So it's going to be recommendations such as that.
Another example of a recommendation is that potentially we could integrate solar power to the GMF facility for the RO or MF energy intensity. So, yeah, those are examples.
Thank you. So this is just an information item. Okay, next item up is the monthly operations report. So can we go over that one, please?
Yes, happy to do so. For this presentation, we do have our team here. The monthly operations report begins on packet page 61. We have Uzi Gagnon, our manager of operations, as well as Susanna Lee, our manager of engineering, and Jamie Malpede, our water quality environmental compliance supervisor. So I'll hand it off to Uzi.
Thank you again. Our quick ops recap and update. Lots going on this past month. We have responded to a few more incidents, emergency. We're getting great. It's a really good testament to teamwork when you see collaboration between our contractors and staff. We had a power outage, another squirrel power outage that was caused in September. Interrupted water service and power and water service on the 22nd, and we were able to restore it by the 23rd and resume everything. Communication, everything went well with our customers, and no one was injured, which is, I guess, important. Well, except for a squirrel, but no human was injured. Compliance has gave a presentation, always like a highlight. At Water Reuse, we were asked to give a presentation on our well monitoring program, as Water Reuse wants to learn more about some of the requirements for DPR and how some of our programs are run. So that was great. Kudos to staff on that. We also had a few leaks out in their distribution system. So some of our contract operators help us with those. We'll get a highlight if you choose to see the presentation. We have a few and some photos of those as well. Compliance staff has also been working hard. You may notice, maybe in this room, not so much, but we have some work going on with the air conditioning. There's a lot of new strict AQMD compliance measures now. So we're getting to where even if we can keep some of our older units running, the material, the Freon, the things that are in there are no longer allowed, or we have to report them. So we have a 120-day deadline to make some of the repairs here and keep that reporting. And we filed with that, the AQMD, no problems. We have also been working with a collaborative group with Reuse, DWP, some outside folks to help. We're really starting to look at as our potable water and our recycled water, just that's a different type of water to work with when you're planting. And we want to make sure we might start working on guidelines to help people make sure that when they're changing in this arid landscape, what they're planting, restrictions on ornamental, that we're helping them be successful because it's some different techniques. So we're getting involved with that with some of our customers. We had another reported air quality incident with our lime truck. Didn't have the connection broke, so we reported that to AQMD, no violations. And we're also working hard. You'll see lab RFPs coming out. We have a change in holding times on some of our sampling. And we're also trying to work with our labs a lot, like everything, sampling analysis costs as labs begin to shrink. We're having to get subcontracted labs. And so as costs come up, we're going to go out to bid, and that will be presented to the board probably next month. And with that, I'll ask, would you like to see the presentation? I know we always go over that if there's time, and if you'd like to see it, we're happy to present further.
I'd like to see it.
I'd like to ask a question first.
Sure.
The squirrels, do they attack in the same location Is it something you could do to fortify that area or is it a random type of thing?
Somewhat random. There's probably vulnerable spots. We've been working with Edison on ways if you go online, there's all sorts of interesting mechanisms to put on there to make them slightly more resilient. There was an interesting statistic, I don't know if it was AI generated, but it said something like 18% of power outages of transformers can be caused by like squirrel or rats. So apparently it's more common than you think. But we are working together, an engineering department with Edison, because those belong to Edison. We can't modify those facilities to see if we can make it a little more squirrel proof. Good question, though. I say we get some kitties.
That's great.
Great. Then I will ask you if we'd like to get started to turn to package page 64 or 65. We can start there, please, the presentation, if I could ask for that. And we'll see what is in our presentation here, a number of staff to present on that. And if you could advance to the next one or two slides ahead, please. Thank you very much. Here's a look ahead of some of the upcoming agreements that you'll see that'll come to the board, some action items. We have on our lab agreement extension. We're actually going to go out to bid. We were trying to work with our labs, as we said, costs went up. So you're going to see, we're going to go out to bid for sampling for another year, and that will come back to you next month. We have some of the other improvements and projects you see on here, tech support and the DCS. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. And then I'll turn it over to Susanna. Thank you.
Thank you, Izzy, and good afternoon, for directors. So first section that we're gonna go over, recycled water productions for September. So for September, we were low for a number of reasons. As you mentioned, we have power outages event, and also the high pressure boiler feed for Chevron. There was a line leak at the end of September. And so that affected overall recycled water production. Mainly the area was offline for a few days. If you turn to the next page, this is the breakdown of the different product lines on recycled water. As it's highlighted, barrier was more than 21% compared to budget, and that was mainly due to the number of the power outages event. Torrance low pressure boiler feeds, that was also affected by the power outage, but also they had a little turnaround during last month. As is to Chevron as well, the low pressure, high pressure, they are still going through a minor turnaround, and they've been below what was budgeted. For your information, at the beginning of the year, staff always reach out to the refineries to get a schedule of their turnaround, but these turnaround schedules changes as the refineries have unexpected needs. So these were not accounted for at the beginning of budget cycle. So the budget versus actual. So overall, we are about 10% compared to budget on the total recycled water sales. And we are hoping that October so far, we've been very stable and hoping that we will be closer and bring that actual productions to budget. Next slide, this really just compare this year, September, and to last year, September. Sales, and so as you can see, we're lower in barrier, and again, it's on the refinery side, we're also a little bit low compared to last year due to the power outages.
Susanna, if I can interrupt you so you don't have to come back. Why are we lower in the barrier?
Why are we lower in barrier?
The barrier.
You mean the production compared to last year?
Yeah.
Because
Is that because we were asked, to supply less water or it's internal to us?
No, because of the power outages, we were offline. And then last year, I think at this time, our phase 5 membranes were still producing adequately well. And compared to since probably the latter part of like 2023, that's when we saw a significant decline in phase 5 production. And that's when we went to the board to get. Next slide, please. Here's a highlight for past month maintenance. We had to repair some air scour valve. We've been conservatively replacing beads valve on the phase 5 system that has affected our performance on the phase 4 system. So, but every time we have to repair these valve, it takes a shutdown of the whole entire phase 4, which also affects our barrier production. Because we need to put on scaffold and then we need to isolate phase 4. Maintenance team's also been very busy cleaning up on the satellite facilities and doing repairs. One of which was Torrance refineries. We had to had a brief interruption of service on the nitrified side because the feed line there's a lot of buildup and there's no ease of isolation valve, so we had to turn off the whole biofor productions in order to do that. So these are part of some of capital project that we would like to have to improve reliability. Other two items, as shown on the photos, includes we had a couple communication issues at JMM because the PLCs have been they're older, and we're trying to help with the capital project team to bring back these communications and resolve these issues as quickly as possible. So we see a photo highlighting those work. Last but not least, we also had a cartridge filter had a leak, second one at the same location. We will be bringing back ratification memo to the board next month. We're still trying to gather all the invoices. And the next slide. Just to summarize all the couple of the emergency responses, Lucy mentioned that the power outage or the squirrel really contributed to blown fuses at the station, and we were able to bring service back online around 2:30 the next day. We've been working closely with SCE this last few months or this year, so we were able to get real quick response this time. So we're very happy for the response this time around. On September 26th, we discovered there was a leak, and then Infomark was able to identify that it was high pressure boiler feed versus the low pressure boiler feed based on the conductivity of the water samples, and worked together with Infomark on the distributions, and we were able to repair the line and bring service back online on the next day. That concludes this section, then I'll turn it over to Jamie.
Thank you, Suzanne. The next following slides are the water quality slides. No changes. TSS and turbidity have been stabilizing recently. So you just want to go through those. Next slide, next slide, next slide, next slide. Continue, yeah, next slide. Nothing special to report. Same with the influent versus the ECL influent versus the Hyperion outfall effluent. Things have been stabilizing. Next slide, please. Slide. And then we come to this slide. This is a summary of the environmental compliance activities. Not a lot going on. We've completed our wastewater discharge permit application for our Carson facility. That's with LA County Sanitation District. Something important I want to bring to your attention is that we do have a violation for oil and grease. We are still investigating this violation. This is a very steep violation. We will be in violation for monthly average, weekly average, and instantaneous max limits. We're trying to determine a source. At this time, it's not obvious. There might be a mix-up of samples at the laboratory during sample receiving. We're still working on trying to come to a conclusion. But this is something that we're going to have to report in our quarterly report to the regional board.
Have you ever had this issue?
We had this issue one time before, a year and a half ago. It was at 60 milligrams per liter. So this is a lot more. This is both a concentration-based and mass-based violation. Next slide, please. And with that, I will pass it over to Chandler Shields.
Afternoon, Place of Frank, I'm going to be providing some updates for the distribution system end. Starting on packet page 87. Summary of the O&M implemented during the month of September on the screen here by Infomark, our distribution operator. Just want to highlight 3 distribution system leak repairs that were conducted and performed during the month of September. We had a leak repair in Gardena on a 4-inch pipeline September 6th. The repair was implemented by Infomark with no issues. We had another pipeline repair on the West Basin 6-inch pipeline within the SoFi Stadium area on September 17th. Repair was implemented without any issues. And then the final repair for the month of September was done on the high pressure boiler feed pipeline, which we talked about a little bit up to this point, on September 26th. And a little bit more information here on that on page 88 of the packet. So on September 26th, the leak on El Segundo Boulevard and Eucalyptus was reported by the city of El Segundo. The leak was about 5 gallons per minute. It was from a 16-inch high pressure boiler feed pipeline that supplies the Chevron refinery. Infomark performed the work, or at least they were on site, excuse me, to supervise work that was conducted through the night. And the repair was completed the following morning on September 27th. Permanent paving for this work is still pending. So there's a larger paving area than there is usually. I think it's about 17 feet by 18 feet in terms of what the total area that needs to be paved encompasses. The overall final cost for the work may exceed $50,000. So if that is the case, we'll return to the board to ratify the cost of the repairs. I know we currently have one quote from the repair contractor that did the work initially. And right now Infomark is obtaining additional quotes to compare against that to see if it does surpass that threshold. Next slide shows the map of the area where the leak was and where the paving will need to be performed. Next slide. And then just in terms of customer sites, large customer sites coming on board relatively soon. Palos Verdes Golf Club, which I'm sure you've been privy to a lot of information about. We've been working with the golf club so that they can connect recycled water in early 2025, which would be after the Lago Seco pump station project is complete. Recycled water demand for this site is approximately 200 acre feet per year. You already know that, but yeah, we've been conducting site inspections to help, push the site along. I've been conducting personally. The final site inspections probably for the site for a new on-site pump station that they're installing will be done probably in the next month or two. So yeah, the Lagos Echo pump station separate from that work, once that's complete, that's when we plan on connecting the site. Yeah, that's pretty much it as far as the customer site updates are concerned as well.
Next slide, please. Thank you. And we'll wrap up really quick here with some of our potable, not forget about our potable customers. Some of these you see on here, they take a little bit of time to get going, but we've been having some really good luck working with our customers. West Basin 8 is very interesting. We're really trying to help out the city of Lomita. Very small water department. Same person that had been there for 30 years is no longer there. New city manager, new manager. So West Basin really is trying with MWD to help out from hydraulic analysis, references to CalWarm, but really what we need to do is get an emergency connection for them. There was one, but when they went to exercise it, it hadn't been exercised in so long that it was completely tuberculated. So yeah, we've all seen it, right, on the distribution end. So, but it's a really nice example of teamwork and kind of the beauty of the ethos of the drinking water folks and all the water industry in general working on that. If we go to the next slide, we'll kind of continuing with that theme, the shutdown schedule. MWD has a bunch of shutdown schedule to do some work. One of the reasons we're working with City of Lomita is MWD will be replacing a valve so that they're not as vulnerable if one went out with a different valve and a second valve. That's why they need the temporary backup while they do that. And there's a number of other impacts to some of our customers. That said, we've been able to schedule meetings, overall general meetings, and then individual meetings to assure that all of our purveyors, customers are accommodated. It's been a great group effort and adjustments have been. Right now, it seems like this scheduled shutdown will occur and with very little or no impact. Next slide might be it. Oh, then we go on to some of our sales. You'll see here. These are also probably many of you recognize it from the finance committee, and you can see there in September we had the increase in potable water sales. Often the result, we had those giant heat waves at the end of July and September. So we're going to see that impacted in those monthly bills. The next slide. Oh, and then that's it. Then in your packet, you'll see if you'd like to see all the different recycled water connections. As usual, those are in there. If you have any questions, feel free to let us know. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So the last item up is the monthly engineering report.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, this item begins on packet page 98, and we have a team here for you to present these items. It'll be led off by Barkin Masurlian, our Executive Manager of Engineering Operations. And we also have Veronica Gobert, our Engineering Supervisor, and John Benner.
Good afternoon, directors. The report starts on packet page 98, but we can go to packet page 102 for an overview of what's in the presentation. As usual, we'll start with a look ahead of what's coming up in November, the E&O committee, and then updates on 4 of the projects. I'll just ask the committee just to confirm that we go ahead and provide the full presentation or look over it.
I would the board like to proceed. Quick overview.
Quick overview. Okay, so if we can go to you look ahead at 104. We have received an assessment report on our elevators. We are considering some of the options. So we're hoping to come in with some recommendations next month on a couple options for us to implement. Also, solids handling improvement project. We have pre-procured some items in the past. We're coming by again next month for some more. And the DCS replacement project, we are moving along as planned, and we plan on issuing the aggressive design build RFP in early December. To do that, we have to get the board's approval, your approval, next month. So we'll come back for that for approval. One thing that the engineering staff did was visit City of San Diego, who had implemented the DCS replacement project recently. So a few members of our staff visited that facility and got some very useful tips, do's and don'ts from the folks over there. Also, engineering staff attended a couple of MET events. One was a training on collaborative delivery of projects. Considering that we are moving ahead with the progressive design build for the DCS project, staff, a lot of folks from West Basin attended the training that MET provided for free. Feedback was great. The training was very effective. We appreciate our brothers and sisters in MET for including us in those type of events. Also, West Basin engineering staff attended METworks in Anaheim a week or so ago, which was, I think there were more than 700 attendees of contractors, consultants, so on and so forth. Very successful event. We managed to connect with a lot of vendors that are out there, folks that are actually could be good fit in proposing on a lot of the things coming up from our CIP schedule. Other than that, the PV lateral project is moving along really well. Final touches on the pipeline side of things. There's an SCE meter that we're working on that needs a little bit of a realignment of a conduit. That's one of the last things on the pipeline contract with the PV lateral. The pump station excavation has started for the pump station building. And paving has been completed to add the new parking lots and parking area. And solids handling project is moving along as planned. We have another last workshop, constructability workshop with the team, and coming up, I think, next week, November 8th. And then after that, we're ready to issue the package for solicitation. That concludes the overview presentation, but happy to answer any questions. The team is here. Project managers are here to answer any questions.
Any questions?
Thank you, no, thank you.
When are we gonna be through hearing about the PV lateral?
We were hoping the pump station is done by March. Earlier, Chandler presented that there are some improvements happening on the customer side of things, and the pump station is the last piece. So we're very eager ourselves to have it complete.
Thanks.
Anything else? Director Gray, do you have any additional comments? I don't have any comments, and we do not have a closed session. Any other comments that committee members or the board members would like to make?
No, thank you.
All right, we are adjourned.
Thank you very much.